So this is Jim Cashel. I'm with Leonard Schaeffer, professor at USC, who gave a lunchtime presentation with a very audacious title of The Future of Health Reform. So what is the future of health reform?
Well, unfortunately, it's highly problematic. I think we have both a populace and an administration that really want to do some good things, but health reform has kind of run into the healthcare crisis, rather, has kind of collided with the economic crisis. So we have to find a way through this that is affordable. And in the short term, it's going to be very difficult to find ways to control healthcare costs that are politically acceptable to people that want to run for office and be reelected. Long term, if we can't do what's called bend the curve, which is to change the rate of increase, healthcare will cost so much that it will become both an economic problem and a national security problem. That is to say, we'll be dependent on other countries to buy our debt, and we don't want to have them control us. So we can either take small steps now, or down the road we're going to have such a big problem that there'll be draconian cuts in healthcare.
So if the future of health reform is untenable in the current trajectory, what are the steps that you think we should be prioritizing at this point?
Well, health reform isn't untenable; it's healthcare costs.
Healthcare costs. I'm sorry.
So what that means is, in Congress, there's a mechanism called pay-go. Basically, what that means is you can't spend more money unless you cut some money now to offset that. And that's the difficulty for elected officials, because while we want to extend access to more Americans, we got to cut some cost. And if we cut costs, the fear is we might reduce quality, although that doesn't have to be the case. But it certainly will reduce somebody's income. And that somebody is going to fight back. So elected officials have a very tough situation. We want to cover more people, but we can't afford to unless we reduce costs. We have to reduce costs in a way that doesn't affect quality. So these are very difficult trade-offs, and the issues that elected officials in Washington face is, what can I do that's going to be helpful in a healthcare context that will not exacerbate the financial difficulties that are out there? And these are very tough issues, and a democratic process is always choppy and complicated, so it'll take a while.
So John Chauvin earlier in the day was saying that the only sort of feasible or the best way to put constraints around the cost is to actually have a dedicated separate tax that funds healthcare. That is one method. It's politically possibly not feasible.
Well, I think the problem is, when we had some just outstanding, economists present, what makes all the sense in the world to economists is basically political poison. Professor Chauvin's platform, when translated into political terms, was, I'm in favor of subsidization, compulsion, and higher taxes. You don't get elected, on those bases. So we have to find solutions that are both politically and culturally acceptable. And one of the things that we've got to help people understand is, contrary to what most Americans believe, higher cost does not result in better care. In fact, in many studies of Medicare, it's been demonstrated that higher cost correlates with lower quality. So we can indeed reduce costs, but that has to become politically acceptable. People have to understand that in reducing costs, we're not causing these other problems. And I think that'll take a while. The difficulty is we don't have a while. This is a pressing concern. So it's a lot of pressure on elected officials. I think we will get legislation. The concern that I voiced this afternoon is that if the votes aren't there for macro integrated new system, and I don't think they are, we'll get pieces, and some of those pieces will help, and some of those pieces will hurt. And the danger is an uncoordinated response that actually makes things worse, not better. I'm hopeful that won't happen, but this is tough stuff.
So in that process of policy sausage making, what are some of the key ingredients that you do hope at the end of the day make it into the new health reform legislation?
Well, I think this pay-go system, while it is frightening for elected officials, is the way to do it. Let's not, in the name of covering more people, create a bigger problem for the United States. Let's say if we're going to cover more people, we have to find a way to offset the cost. That's tough for politicians. They got to make decisions around reducing somebody's income, but they ought to make those decisions. So if the pay-go thing stays and we do cover more people, we'll find some offsets. I think the other issue is that the level of understanding of these complex factors is very low in Washington. And it's not because elected officials aren't smart. They're very smart. It's because they got everything else to worry about. Mm-hmm. Okay? And healthcare used to be a lower left-hand corner problem. Now it's a major problem. Right. So the members and their staffs have to come up to speed. And one of the things that's very interesting is CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, is very knowledgeable. And they have the role of scoring new legislation. Mm-hmm. Well, they are not scoring a lot of these politically popular ideas as being cost savers. Mm-hmm. And so elected officials and their staffs and members of the public who are interested, we have to have better proposals that actually have a real impact. And we get back to that problem of voting for something that's going to reduce someone's income. But we have to get to the point where we understand that in healthcare, just like in the rest of the economy, we need value for money. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with spending a lot of money on healthcare if you're getting value. We are not. Something around 30% of healthcare, according to the Dartmouth researchers, 30% of the money spent on healthcare is not spent on anything that meaningfully improves health status. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's nuts, right? According to researchers at RAND, 45% of the time you go to your doctor, you do not get care that's based on scientific evidence. What other part of the American economy, has basically a 50% error rate? Right. So we've got to, if we're going to spend this kind of money on healthcare, we've got to demand the kind of quality and the kind of results we have in the rest of the economy. And that is a learning process for consumers of healthcare, for members, and unfortunately for people who provide healthcare services.
Mm-hmm. Professor Schaeffer, thank you.